So here we are for the second talk. And I was sitting in here after I did the Death by Air Squat challenge the other day. And I came to the realization some of you may be wondering why you would ever do something like this. And if you would have asked me years ago if I would be doing something like this, pushing myself mentally beyond what my goals are with fitness, I may have wanted someone to answer that too. And that's why I want to talk about why building your mental strength will help you for whatever your goals are in life, whether it's profession, hobbies, interests. Mental toughness will help you get further. So years back, I was just into, back when I was in high school, I was just into fitness. I was big into working out and building my strength, which is a great foundational block. But as I began progressing in my workouts and implementing things like ice baths and other mentally challenging things, I did not, it sounds dumb, but I did not even know what mental challenges were and that was a thing to push yourself mentally. But by chance, as you push yourself further in life, you challenge yourself mentally. So as I went further in these workouts and started implementing these other things, like a common one you guys probably see on the internet is ice baths, I started to get this unusual feeling, and it was in my mind that it was being pushed and tested. It was like the next level because you can feel your muscles when you're working out. But when I started doing these certain things, I got a feeling in my mind that it was being worked. It's kind of like when you're studying and you feel that mental strain that you don't want to keep going. So once I figured out that was an actual thing, I went down this rabbit hole to find challenges and keep pushing myself to try and build my mental strength on top of my physical strength. And what I learned was that it didn't only allow me to push further in my strength and workout goals, but going back to the studying, there's not a lot of people out there who truly enjoy studying, at least when you're early on in your developmental stages of your mind. But with me, I remember seeing on YouTube, it was these videos of people studying. It would be like tagged 10 hours plus studying session. And I couldn't fathom how they were sitting there and studying for over 10 hours. So I was in this hard program, and what I found was by me pushing myself harder with these mental challenges, let's use ice bath, for example, I would take an ice bath before a test because in my mind, pushing myself to go through this hard activity, now when I go to class, whatever we have to do in class, I know it's not going to be as hard as that challenge I did, which in turn is allowing you to push harder in that activity. I remember with studying, so the activity I did to make myself study harder was run. And running, I found that it takes such a mental, such a mental strength to push through step after step after step. If you don't make yourself take another step, you're not going to run. So I would run for miles and miles and sometimes throw weight on my back, sometimes ruck, walk, run, sometimes set a goal, a place I would drive, say I need to run to this location and back. And the hours it took of me running, I remember I would sit down and begin studying at 3 a.m. And I just got this weird feeling because I said, no matter how much this may suck to study, I would much rather be studying right now for these few hours than running for a few hours. So it's kind of just a different way of looking at things. It's kind of the idea that once you do something harder, everything else becomes easier. And it's something I like to tell people when they say, hey, that's my limit, or hey, that's where I draw the line. Well, unfortunately, the only way to create new limits is to push past the old ones. And understanding that your mind is what creates a lot of your limits. The more you begin to work out your mind, the further your limits are going to go. And much more so with yourself, when you're trying to accept that the further you push yourself mentally, the further you will get in life, is to understand, to take a look at yourself of what your goals are. You know, whether you want to be a teacher, a doctor, anything that requires school, or anything that requires training. If you're blue collar, white collar, whatever your goals are, if it's to be an influencer, if it's a fitness goal, if it's to be a banker, a grocery store checker, I want I want everyone to understand, whether or not you choose to push yourself mentally, I want you to at least acknowledge that the stronger you are mentally, the further you would get in any profession, even if it's an accountant. If you push yourself so hard mentally in workouts, you know, whether you're doing ice baths, rucks, whatever challenge you're doing, when you go back to your job, it's going to make it that much easier because you're pushing yourself so much harder, so much more harder than what's needed. And I know some people say, well, it doesn't align with what I want, especially when I bring up the running example. Let's say I told you to run for a few miles. You may say, hey, I don't want to be one of these runners that you may see online. And they use that as an excuse not to do it because they don't think it's going to help them in their life. Well, I will say that don't lie to yourself that that's just because you enjoy doing something, you won't fail at it later on. Because the further you get in life and the further you get in that specific goal down that path, the harder it's going to get, no matter how much you enjoy it. So once you get to a certain level, there's always going to be a time when you're tested and want to quit. And what's going to happen when you wake up one morning and don't want to get out of bed? When stuff's getting too hard, now there's too much knowledge to learn about the specific topic, and you're sitting there in failure and you quit. Look at everyone around you when they stop doing something. If we're doing it, most likely we enjoyed doing it at some point. But what people don't prepare themselves for is the years down the road when it gets hard. And when it gets hard is when people crumple and quit. So by doing these things you don't like, it's going to make you that much better at the things you do like. You know, it's kind of like a job where there's kind of like the work. I won't say the terms you say at work. I'm sure everyone has their own phrase for it, but it's the work no one wants to do that tries to get pawned off or is viewed as negative. Well, thinking of a different way you could switch your mindset. If there's any work to be done, you should be happy that you're doing it. There's no point in pawning it off on someone else, no matter how grueling or miserable it may seem, because you understand the more work you're doing now is going to help you in the future. And the more you don't like doing something is the more you should be doing it. Because then when you go back to doing something you do like, you're going to get that much further in it. The astronaut cup, going back to the astronaut. What if you wanted to be an astronaut? Do you think studying alone is going to get you there? Or is it going to be your values to push you through each and every day? Because that's, I'm sure if you've kind of been in this type of world, watching these styles of videos, you've heard motivation versus discipline. Well, motivation is doing something you want to do, right? That gets you out of bed at 5 a.m. that first day you decided to do something. But discipline is what gets you doing the things you don't want to do. If you have the discipline to scrub someone else's toilet, who wants to do that? You're going to have the discipline to work towards your goals. And the point I'm trying to make is that building your mental toughness, no matter what activity what whatever activity you're doing, whether you like it or not, if it's challenging yourself mentally, that's helping you build your mental toughness. And having more mental toughness than when you know what to do with is going to help you for any situation you decide to apply it for. So I was thinking of this topic after my last challenge, because I know some of you may not think it applies to you. And whether or not you decide to do it, I just really hope that you think about it and you at least acknowledge that if you have more mental toughness, whatever you decide to do in life, whether it's a goal, dealing with family, work, or just a hobby, you're going to be that much better at it because you have that much willpower and control of your mind. So I don't know which video comes next, but until I see you again, keep pushing.